トビデオ
Anime and manga's relationship with war and the military has always been complicated, and for good reason. Historically, the first generation of anime and manga creators who laid the foundation for the craft were children who had either experienced the horrors that World War II had brought to the home front or its immediate aftermath. They were the generation that saw how nationalist fervor brought Japan to ruin, how it sent off an entire generation of fathers, brothers, and sons to die needlessly, how it committed atrocities against both the people of other nations and its own civilians in the name of patriotism. Japan is like America with how its media portrayal of war is colored by the specter of the Second World War. But unlike America, whose war movies tend to glorify the military as defenders of freedom just so Hollywood can get that big fat check from the Department of Defense, Japan's portrayal of war tends to be a lot more even-handed and realist. War in anime is often shown to be a destructive meat grinder that soldier and civilian alike are thrown into. At best, the concept is seen as a necessary evil, and at worst, it is a tragic inevitability. The most famous of these war stories is Yoshiyuki Tomino's Mobile Suit Gundam franchise, a story told through multiple universes where the main conceit is just how much war is a hellish fight for survival that breaks people. It is the most consistent theme throughout 40 plus years of anime in spite of the wow cool robot agenda Bandai pushes in the name of the almighty yen. However, Gundam is still a science fiction anime. A giant robot anime that's centered around the harsh realities of war still has giant robots in it. What about those who want something more grounded and down to earth? For those people, you really cannot go wrong with Area 88.
こちら00セクション風間慎こちら00セクション風間聞こえているのかいないのか毎度のことながら言やんな
Shin Kazuma is an exceptionally well-coiffed up-and-coming airline pilot for the prestigious Japanese airline business, Yamato Airlines. He's at the top of this training class alongside his childhood friend Satoru Kanzaki, and has even begun dating the daughter of the company president and embodiment of 80s floof, Ryoko Sugumo. Things could not be better for him. That is, until, during a night of drunken revelry, a jealous Kanzaki tricks his tipsy friend into signing a contract. That contract causes Shin to be forcibly drafted into the mercenary wing of the Kingdom of Arslan's military, who's currently embroiled in a seemingly never-ending civil war. The base Shin is assigned to has a name, Area 88.
さあ、そうやって武器を売りつけていると、そのうち地獄に落ちるぜ。
ここはエリア88、地獄の一丁目じゃよ。これ以上どこへ落ちるんじゃ。
Under the command of Arslanian Crown Prince Saki Vashtal, Shin is forced to risk his life every day by flying a plane in a war he has no stake in, exacerbated by his sense of pacifism that he's forced to suppress if he wants to make it out of Area 88 alive.
夕焼け、俺にとっては真っ赤な血の色。
And while Shin may have comrades in arms at the base like war veteran Mickey Simon, fearless Dane Greg Gates, and fellow Japanese war journalist Rocky Mitsugi, the odds of him leaving Area 88 in one piece are stacked against him. He has three options: survive a 3-year tour of duty, buy out his contract by earning $1.5 million through bounties, or desertion, which, since he's in the middle of a desert, is a death sentence either way. Meanwhile, back in Japan, Kanzaki is using the opportunity of Shin being out of the picture by wheeling and dealing his way through the ranks of Yamato Airlines, while also trying to weasel his way into Ryoko's heart. Ryoko, however, is unmoved, and decides to do some detective work herself to find out where exactly her boyfriend is gone. Can Shin survive Area 88? Will Ryoko get to him in time? Or will Shin surrender his body and mind to the eternal Hades of desert warfare? Running from 1979 to 1986, Area 88 is a franchise that feels under-discussed in terms of landmark shonen properties from the 1980s. For one thing, Area 88 was one of the first mangas to be officially translated into English through publisher Eclipse Comics. Released alongside other mangas, Legend of Kamui and Mai the Psychic Girl, Area 88 ended up being an important part of the early anime and manga scene in the States, even if its run ultimately ended up being famously left incomplete. But we're not here to talk about that. There's also the famous arcade game adaptation released by Capcom in 1989, which is known better among American gamers as UN Squadron, considered by many the world over to be one of the finest side-scrolling shmups of its generation. But we're not here to talk about that either. This is an anime show, don't you know? So we're going to be talking about the OVA series released in 1985. The Area 88 OVA is what I consider to be a near perfect adaptation of the manga. A feat made more impressive considering that it was done before the manga was completed, and the fact that Pierrot was able to effectively compress 23 volumes into a 3-episode OVA, or 2 90-minute features depending on which version you're watching. Now, I've said before that the method of trying to squeeze a lengthy body of work into a short OVA series is either ambitious at best or a recipe for failure at worst, but it actually works here. Area 88 is how you do this kind of abridged adaptation while keeping the story faithful and never losing sight of the themes that holds it all together. And the final product ends up being one of anime's most truly effective gritty war stories. Area 88 begins with Kaoru Shintani. We talked about him briefly in our Desert Rose video a couple of years back as he was the author of the original manga, but Area 88 is his breakout hit and still remains his most successful and well-regarded title. Though he got his start in shoujo manga, Shintani spent most of the 70s working as an assistant to Leiji Matsumoto, not only helping him finish pages, but also constructing plastic models for him for art references. Because of this, we can definitely see where he got that attention to detail in drawing military hardware that's present throughout his bibliography. In 1978, Shintani made his true manga debut with the manga Phantom Barai, a collaboration between him and future Fist of the North Star writer Yoshiyuki Okamura. Phantom Barai focuses on the pilots in the Japanese Special Defense Force during the post-war era. It's less of a hard-boiled military drama and more of a slice of life around the military base with moments of comedy and drama punctuated throughout. All in all, it was a preview to what would soon be his breakout solo work. Shintani was inspired by 2 sources in the making of Area 88. One was Alexander Dumas' Count of Monte Cristo, thinking about how a story where an upper-class individual is betrayed by a close rival and sent to hell on earth could work in a more modern setting. The second was of a Panasonic shortwave radio commercial where an American soldier in a faraway land weeps as he listened to a song from his homeland. Shintani wondered how that event would play out if that soldier was Japanese. Area 88 was a massive success, mostly thanks to it being one of the flagship titles for the recently relaunched Shonen Big Comic magazine. And with its success running in tandem with the emergence of the new OVA market, the studio who brought that market to the mainstream with the OVA Dallos, Studio Pierrot, really latched onto the idea of Area 88 being their next big OVA project. Assigned to the project was director Hisayuki Toriumi. We mostly know Toriumi as Mamoru Oshii sensei, who helped him greatly in the creation of Dallos. But for that time in the anime industry, Toriumi was a director held in very high regard. This is mostly through his work at Tatsunoko, where he directed the mega hit Science Ninja Team Gatchaman. Him being attached to this project from the get-go showed how much Pierrot wanted to get right in adapting Area 88. And get right they did. The first thing Area 88 gets right is that it translates Shintani's immaculately detailed art to animation flawlessly. Shintani was the one who specifically requested Toriumi be attached to the project because of his work on Dallos. He wanted full usage of the animated medium. He wanted planes streaking across the sky, spewing spent bullet casings as their shots literally shred enemy combatants. And what else can be said but mission accomplished. If you are a sucker for dogfighting, then this is the anime for you. These are some of the finest choreographed dogfights in the animation medium. This can be credited to animation director and character designer Toshiyasu Okada. Okada's team never loses any detail right down to the super complicated dashboards of the cockpits. Bullets pierce through steel like a hot knife through butter. Expensive hardware crumpling and going up in beautifully drawn flames as the hapless pilot tries and fails to bail out. Combat's endless ballet of carnage. But what really caught me off guard was how even the scenes outside of battle were well animated. There are holds, yes, but 80% of the anime is built on the characters doing some action while having a conversation with each other. For example, take the scene where Shin and Mickey are having a post-battle conversation while each of them are drinking a Coke. While that conversation is going on, they pop the top, drink, pace around, and crush the cans before throwing them away in that single piece of conversation. And while those actions aren't completely necessary, it really makes the downtime feel more like actual downtime between characters rather than just a means to get plot information across. And I really have to hand it to Toriumi's storyboarding. He and his cinematographers know how to squeeze every drop of drama out of these shots. It's another element that helps draw the audience into the drama on screen outside of the fiery battles. The intro to the second feature is this beautifully shot atmospheric buildup of Shin doing a takeoff before dawn, and the only lighting there is in the scene are of the lights coming from his plane and his dashboard. But as impressive as the visuals are, and yes, they are very impressive, I really want to draw attention to just how well structured an adaptation this really is. As I said at the top, Area 88 is a 23-volume manga, and it being adapted into a roughly 3.5-hour OVA should be impossible. We can credit screenwriter Akiyoshi Sakai for his work in adapting the manga, and without his hard work, this anime would not nearly be as good as it is. He's able to break up the entire structure of the manga, which is partially episodic in nature, and reassemble the chapters into a whole overarching narrative. Expected things happen, characters get cut, singular events are combined into one event, and even entire plot lines are shortened or removed altogether. Rocky the war journalist gets killed off very abruptly just to emphasize how quickly even a non-combatant can die on the battlefield, whereas in the manga, his story keeps going. This is all necessary when you consider just how many plot lines the script has to keep in the air. Okay, you have Shin being stuck in a war he doesn't want to be in. You have to balance all the character angst he's feeling alongside his interactions with his comrades, his commanding officer, and McCoy, the shady quartermaster, who's here for comic relief.
50発で1000ドル。
安いな。不良品じゃないのか？
このわしが飛ばんミサイルを一度だって撃ったことがあっても爆発しないのがあったな。
From there, Shin's plotline can go three ways. Can he survive the full 3 years? Can he earn enough money to buy out his contract? Will he end up biting the bullet and deciding to desert? All valid options with their own sets of pros and cons. But here's where it gets fun. On top of all of that, you have the other pilots and their stories. You got Mickey, who is a Vietnam War vet who has so much PTSD that the only place he feels complete is on the battlefield. You got Boris, the German pilot with a death wish because of his crushing survivor's guilt. You got Jess, a greenhorn pilot that Shin is forced to mercy kill after being blinded during combat and putting the rest of the squadron in danger. You even got the 3 mysterious African bounty hunters who show up to the base unannounced so that they may get a chance to hunt down any potential deserters. And you can't forget Saki and his stake in the war as Arlen's crown prince. On top of the whole geopolitical situation, as this takes place during the Cold War, and both Western and Eastern powers are all looking to exploit the eventual outcome of the war for all it's worth. And then we also have the shit happening outside of Arslan, with Kanzaki using Shin's absence as an opportunity to climb up the corporate ladder of Yamato's airlines, up to and including making an alliance with a corporation that cuts corners on its aircraft, causing a deadly crash of a passenger plane. And we also can't forget Ryoko's role in trying to do everything in her power to find out where Shin is and get to him, something that Kanzaki is aware of and plans to exploit in the most creepiest way possible.
風間のためならどんなことにも耐えられると言った。それを証明してもらいましょう。あなたも子供じゃないんだ。どうすべきか分かっているはず。いや、その覚悟でやってきたのでしょ。
All of those plot lines and character motivations condensed into a 3.5-hour structure, but Sakai is able to juggle all those balls in the air. All of those plot lines end up getting just the right amount of screen time and overlap and end up resolving in a satisfying way. By the end, barely any thread is left hanging. But I think what really helps Area 88 story-wise is not Sakai's devotion to keeping all the plot threads together. The big thing the anime gets right in adapting the source material is purely in the themes. Getting the themes right and adapting a story is just as important as telling a satisfying version of that story. It's what helps elevate the material. Now, Area 88 makes it very apparent that it is thematically about war and why it is hell. A common theme, but an effective one. The challenge is, like most anime that carry this theme, is that you have to balance this theme while still showing how awesome all these aerial battles are. After all, seeing these accurate to a T real-world fighter planes like Shin's F-20 Crusader and Mickey's F-100 Super Saber in action is the main draw of the franchise. How can war be hell if you get to fly these awesome planes? Incidentally, why not buy an official Area 8 modeling kit? But Area 88 is always there to remind you that the situation Shin is in is a crappy one. Yeah, you get to fly a fighter jet, but at the cost of being far away from home, having to forsake your pacifistic beliefs in the name of survival, and knowing that you are just one well-placed shot from not seeing another sunrise. Life is cheap in the war zone. No matter the mission Shin and the rest of his comrades are sent on, there is always a body count to be had, and the deaths are shown to be just as random and abrupt as any death would be on the battlefield, on both sides of the conflict. Rocky's death really does come out of nowhere because he and the pilot he's riding along with are attacked during a routine exercise and end up crashing in the desert. A named character gone in an instant. Even when the death is dramatic, the violence of war always plays a background to it. Early in the first film, secondary character Boris ends up fatally wounded and chooses to crash his plane instead of bleeding out. But before he does, he remarks that he had heavy PTSD after seeing so many of his friends die in battle, and maybe now, with his death, he might actually get some peaceful rest for once.
こんな友達でもいつかはどちらかが先に死んでしまうのが戦争だ。切ないよな。
PTSD is a huge part of Area 88's narrative as it plays into so many of the characters' histories. As I said before, Mickey is a Vietnam War vet, and he chose to leave a very cushy, very wealthy life behind in America, all just because the battlefield is the only place he feels whole again.
長い間戦場にいて生と死の境目をくぐり抜けてきた男には平和な生活が肌に合わなくなっちまったのかな。理屈に合わねえ話さ、まったく。
Hell, even a bloodthirsty psychopath like former Viet Cong pilot Nguyen Van Chom is given some sympathy because all he has ever known since he came into this world was war and death.
爆撃で吹っ飛んだお袋の体から生まれ出たんだ。まあ、生まれたところが地獄だったってわけよ。その後ずっと地獄の中を歩いてきて、気がついたら血を見なきゃ収まらねえ体になっちまったんだ。
But where all the dark themes of Area 88 shine the brightest is through our hero Shin. Despite his shoujo doe eyes and boyish good looks, Shin is truly a sad character who has earned the right to wear his hair covering most of his face. Unlike nearly everyone at Area 88, Shin is not a veteran of combat, nor is he a thrill-seeking newbie looking for fulfillment. He was just an ordinary pilot in training tricked into joining the war effort in the first place. And the anime pulls no punches showing what effect being forced to kill multiple people every day out of survival does to the psyche of someone who had no desire to become a soldier in the first place.
長すぎるんだよ。もうたくさんだ、人殺しだって。
Area 88 does such a good job in putting us in Shin's shoes and showing how he is completely trapped in this war zone. It really captures the spirit of a soldier far away from the home he knows and loves, to the point that Shin getting the opportunity to eat cheap, authentic cup noodles is treated like him getting the feast of a lifetime. And while he has 3 escape options, they feel completely out of reach. Lasting the full 3 years is something Shin completely rules out because he has no idea if he could die in that time period. So he goes for the option of buying out his contract through bounties. Sure, he has to kill more people and go against his belief system every single day, but it'll all be worth it once he's able to earn that $1.5 million. But the catch is that Shin still needs to pay for his plane repairs and artillery with his bounty money. This leads to an event where Shin is just 1 kill away from buying out his contract, but an incident in the ensuing pursuit causes so much heavy damage to his plane that he barely makes it back to base and ends up having to buy a new one, erasing an entire third of his war chest in the process.
気を落とすな。命が助かっただけでもめっけもんだぜ。50万ドル稼ぐのにまた何人殺せばいいと思うんだ。
With events like this happening on the reg, it's no wonder that Shin really begins to crack. After an event where he is almost killed by a mafia hitman hired by Kanzaki and crashing his plane yet again, Shin throws his hands up and decides that enough is enough, he's gonna desert. Damn the consequences. But after spending an undisclosed amount of time wandering the desert wastes, he finally gets back to civilization. And that civilization is...
まだ俺に人を殺せと命じるのか。人殺しをさせるために俺をここへ導いたのか。人を殺して生きろというのか。
Try as he might, he cannot escape the hell he is trapped in. Not only is this another example of how war is an escapable hell for soldiers, it's also a clever bit of foreshadowing. Spoilers coming up for the grand finale of Area 88, you know the drill, skip to this time point if you want to be spared the gory details. The centerpiece of Shin's development as a character is how his attitude towards killing people changes over time. The act of killing is something that is always weighing heavily on his soul, and yet, even from the beginning, he knows he has to kill in order to make it out of Area 88 alive. There are no vast stampedes and foxholes, it would seem. And while he still considers the act of killing to be morally reprehensible and is very aware of the amount of blood he has on his hands, it still doesn't stop Shin from slowly losing any hesitancy to pull the trigger.
人殺しをしなくてもいいシャバへ出ていくためにこの手を血に染めて人を殺す。恐ろしいことをやってるのにいつの間にか何とも感じなくなっちまった。いつからなのかな。
As time goes on, Shin ends up developing a reputation as a true ace pilot with a considerable body count to his name. Unbeknownst to himself, Shin has become the perfect mercenary. It doesn't hit him until he meets a new recruit from Japan who immediately tried to desert, and he tells Shin that they are, in no way, the same.
ビジネスだぜ。一人殺していくら、一気撃ち落としていくら、銭をやるから戦争をやれと言われたんだ。風間さん。 あんたそれをやってるんだ。愛国兵士じゃないんだよ。金で殺しを請け負ってる殺人鬼なのさ。そういう目をしてるよ。あんたと話をしたかったんじゃない。人殺しの上手な日本人の目を見たくって来てもらったんだ。
But then the finale starts. Shin is given a mission directly from command that he is to escort the King of Arslan's private jet to save neutral territory because the war is coming to an end and Saki's side is pretty much doomed. If Shin completes his mission, he will be discharged from his service early.
本国籍新風間国王をフランス政府に預けた時点で君を解任する。新日本へ帰れ。
After a heartwarming scene of his comrades safely seeing him off to the border, Shin is formally discharged and makes his way to France to finally reunite with Ryoko. But on his way, he gets into a fight with a couple of toughs and is arrested. And while he immediately gets bailed out by his sponsor, Shin has the realization that the confrontation was the first time since he got back to civilization that he has felt any sense of being complete.
3人のチンピラに絡まれた時ぐらいかな。面白かったのは。こんな気持ちになるなんて俺自身わからないんですよ。
Shin has been in combat for so long that he derives no joy from civilian life anymore. What seals the deal for him is that when he finally gets back into contact with Ryoko again, even hearing her voice for the first time in years makes him feel nothing. So he immediately hangs up and cuts off all contact with her. He has decided to go back to Area 88 at all costs because to him, that is the only place where he belongs. It should be noted that this is not portrayed as a moment of triumph or a he's back moment because Area 88 as Shin knows it no longer exists. With the war wrapping up, Saki declares all men stationed at Area 88 are now officially unemployed and that he plans on surrendering the base to the enemy, which will immediately spell a certain death sentence for him, making the rest of the crew accept this at first, but right when Saki is guiding them all to the border to escape, they are attacked by a whole fleet of enemy aircraft and decide that if they are all going down, they should at least take a few enemy fighters with them as well. And the anime ends with Shin flying his aircraft across a blue sky to the battle ahead, the anime all but saying that he is flying towards his doom. Area 88 is an anime that really handles the heavy topics of warfare and the life and psyche of a soldier with the right amount of gravitas. Which is strange considering it's not all that downbeat with its subject matter. Remember, this was based off a shonen manga after all. But in the end, Area 88 really achieves being a moving and extremely gripping war story. It delivers on plenty of well-animated, high-flying action to keep your attention, but is always grounded in the harsh realities of being a soldier, so it never loses its poignancy. This, my friends, is how you do an adaptation of a long-running series with a limited time frame. Sometimes all you need to do is just really capture the spirit of a story. That, and also have some truly sick dogfights.